Footy and Frothies, Daggy and Barney are back with you to talk all of the action from the weekend. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah. Been better, but life goes on.
One day I'm going to ask you this and you'll say you're fucking
Won the lotto. I've won a shit ton of money.
Something like that.
Back injuries are never fun, mate.
No.
Been in a fair bit of pain for the last 6 or 7 days. But other than that, we march on.
No, we do. My back's a bit sore. First time at the gym in about 7 years.
Oh, congratulations.
So, yeah, now I've got to make sure I get there for a second time at some point. But anyway.
What happened there? A bit of cardio, throw a few weights around?
Yeah, just a new joint. So half-hour cardio and some weights to loosen the bones and see what's going on there. So we'll have a better plan next time.
Yeah.
Look at me, trying to not be a fat fuck, but that's a long road back. Anyway, yeah, footy was good.
It is a long road back. Yeah, it was pretty good. I thought the first game was a little disappointing. Actually, I thought it could have been a little bit more clinical with some of the some of the attacking play, but the desperation and the continued effort from both teams really made it a pretty decent game to watch at the end of the day. And Newcastle just sort of ran out of gas, I thought.
That's something else going to that Warriors home ground in that.
Yeah, that was pretty comprehensive beating there from the Warriors that they delivered.
The crowd, is it yours? I hope so.
No, they're yours.
The crowd over there was phenomenal. Like that,
wasn't it? It was rocking.
I would have loved. It would be
the
super
Joker found a mate.
Super interesting to see how if they'd got a home final, what the result might have been in any game that went there. Because honestly, they would have just about beaten anyone on earth in that situation. But we'll get to that. There's not a lot of news to talk about. I guess there was a suggestion today that the transfer deadline will go back to 30 June.
Right, okay.
So whatever that means. Like, I don't think it's made that. I know it's made. There's been some sort of, shall we call, bullshit late season transfers coming to final teams from teams in the last few years. But ultimately, what's it going to change? I think that until they overhaul a whole lot, not much.
No, you're going to hear a lot more talk around in the middle of the season, really, around Origin time about possible mid-season switches. But I actually don't mind where it is at the moment and the way it's structured. The way it does provide an opportunity for the likes of Tavita last year, where he jumped in at the Panthers at the back end of the year and stuff like that. So
we didn't really see it this year. Like there could have been some up for grabs, I suppose. But anyway. I have safely not lost a single minute's sleep over that rule either way, so who cares? But we'll wait and see on that. And there was a transfer today that I've just forgotten. Again, who cares? Ashley Klein got dropped this week, deservedly so.
Deservedly so, absolutely. Nathan went to hospital with a finger injury, apparently.
So he'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a beat up that is or what's going on there, but
they've got to write about. They're already recycling Tigers stories from 6 months ago, so they've got to write about something. Let me just have a look if there was another transfer.
The big one's probably whether Luai's fit to play and Jerome Hughes both in the same match, which would be interesting to see how they turn out if they do. Be a pretty quick turnaround for. Was it a dislocated shoulder or was there a fracture? Dislocated shoulder. To come back in the space of 3 weeks?
3 or 4 weeks. And my concern is always they're fine, and in the first tackle out of pops and they're down to 16 blokes. So, and we've seen that happen numerous occasions.
Oh, you'll see Cogger on the bench for sure. I dare say will play the 14 role, and you probably see Tyrone miss out on a spot if Targo is fit to come back. Another one who's been out for a long time, coming back into that side.
About a month. So, and we'll talk about it because what we'll do is get everything out of the way here. We're going to do review both games and then preview the upcoming games all in this segment. And then for those on YouTube, they'll be up as individual shows. But we're going to review the bottom 5 teams and just talk about their trials and tribulations over the course of the year. Next week we'll do the next 4 and so on and so forth. Given next week's a grand final, we've probably got some stuff to catch up on, actually, now I think about this, but whatever. That's fine. We need to plug rugbyleaguemerch.com. Check them out for these fine hats, the shirts up there, and Steins and all sorts of good stuff. Leave us some feedback on socials, as always, Facebook, Instagram. I finally cracked the shits with X and shut it down because what a cesspool that place is. Not our followers, but just in general. And, YouTube, where plenty of comments have come through, which we'll get to throughout the afternoon. It was very... I put out a couple of things on TikTok because it was very funny to see people accusing the bloke in the Panthers jersey of being biased when I gave Ivan Cleary an award last week for Coach of the Year. So... how little they may know, but
yeah, exactly. Maybe a few first-time listeners there that have jumped exactly, on and seen the shirt.
I did enjoy that. But there was a couple actually quite happy to see it.
Yeah,
Fez and a few others loved the new jersey, so I might just crack it out for bad luck for them next week again. We'll see how we go. But anyway, plenty to talk about. Let's kick off with the Storm 18 nabbing the Roosters 13 in the dying minutes of the first prelim final. I'll let you get the stats. I sort of agree with you a little bit in this game in that the first even 15 minutes, I was just sitting there watching thinking, this doesn't feel like a final. But then I reckon the next hour did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but they felt a lot of going through the motions in that opening period. But give us your stats and then we'll get into it.
We had 3 tries to 2, 1 out of 3 conversions played, 2 out of 2 for the Roosters, 2 out of 2 penalty attempts for the Storm. A missed field goal attempt for Melbourne and 1 out of 1 for the Roosters. 80% completion played, 75%, 3 line breaks to 5, 32 tackle busts to 43, 8 offloads to 16, 1 forced dropout by the Roosters, 321 tackles played, 364, 10 errors from both sides, 4 penalties conceded to 8, 2 ruck infringements to 1, 2 inside the 10 against the Storm and 1 against the Roosters. That first 15 minutes was pretty much set for set. Just sort of, as you mentioned, there's a bit of that going through the motions. I thought the Storm probably had a slight edge in that first 15 minutes with a bit of territory.
I'd go as far to say I thought for the first 10 or 12 minutes that Storm were about to just absolutely
tear them to pieces. I think with a bit more of a settled kicking game, there might have been a few tries come in that first 15, 20 minutes. But they really missed Jerome Hughes in that kicking spot there. Munster seems to just kick and hope more so than have that sort of precision on what he's doing. I thought Wishart was brilliant in this game. I thought the Roosters would have been filthy with that first try with the show and go on the outside of Cheese and snuck on the inside of Keary just to burn straight through for that pretty soft try to open up realistically. I dare say the coach would have been ripping the wallpaper off the walls with that one because that was a pretty simple try to be scored in first grade, even though it was a nice little sleight of hand and some good acceleration to get through the gap. But yeah, it was
still fairly soft.
Yeah, they would have been pretty filthy there. Just cruised through them for a pretty simple try. Got straight back into the grind, though. It was sort of, again, back to set for set. The Roosters seemed to get a little bit more of a momentum in the forwards than the Storm, who in that last hour, they really struggled for forward momentum through the forwards, and that's why they sort of started going to the edges.
Roosters were clearly the better team for that.
The last
55 minutes, and felt like even straight after, Harry came on, and then we saw the Klein incident.
Yep.
Which was we don't want to say 12-point turnaround, but it was definitely a 6-point turnaround. Straight up, marched upfield and scored that set. But when Harry came on, that's when I just thought that Melbourne did go up a gear for probably another 5 or 6 minutes, and then they just fell apart. I thought, and that was it. And Vossi had his Harry hard on. Jeez, my God, he fucking crapped on about Harry in that game.
Nelson had a couple of nice touches, but it was probably one of his games where he didn't have as big as impact as normal. Both teams seem to have defensive issues in and around their halves, which is something that I dare say will get exposed this week. With the halves sort of probing towards the edges and then using inside and outside runners to either target the halves or the inside or outside shoulder of both halves, realistically, on either side of the field. And I think you saw a lot of joy come from it, especially towards the back end of the game with the Roosters when Teddy decided to stop running around in circles in the corner of the field and actually started backing up through the middle of the field. He did bust a few holes there with his centre counterparts, who I thought were actually pretty good coming in to fill positions where they were definitely a class below the blokes that they were replacing. But, the Storm really seemed to open up just on either side of the ruck there towards the back end of the game, and they probably did really well with their scramble defence to stop probably 2 tries in that last half an hour where you saw them just burning through.
Past Guzzi's been that bodyguard of your Walkers of the world the last couple of years, and he's obviously not with us.
No,
in that level of form.
No.
And that was exposed a bit here, but on both sides.
Yeah, definitely on both sides. That second Storm try was probably the best try of the night, I thought.
Yeah.
With the little short pass from
Harry
Wishart,
jumping in.
Katoa with the offload, Wishart with an offload, and then Harry just sort of caught and passed to the Seseve, who just fell over there. But they gave that one to Harry as a try assist. I really thought that was Wishart that, again, for mine,
Opened up.
he was the one that opened up that play and was the bloke who gave the offload to Harry, who just had to float a pass and float across the field and pick up a straight runner. But, yeah, that was probably the try of the game for mine. The biggest thing was the scramble defence from both sides. I think they both probably saved 2 or 3 tries on either side of the field where, they probably score against other teams. This, as we were talking a little earlier off air, that's where the Roosters set up their whole season, because their attack's been pretty woeful for most of it.
Yeah.
And their defence has kept them in so many games that they probably could have and should have lost at different times.
It goes hand in hand with Lindsay Collins just realising he's now Captain Cleanup.
You can't go within 2 or 3 metres of him because the arm just comes out. He just grabs you, wrestles you to the ground.
And then you throw the Butchers in.
They were fantastic.
They have just short that you can trust them.
Tyrell May.
And they trust their line defence as well. There's just no panic. And they get, and in this game as well, they got it, when Melbourne did get down the end of the field, it just felt like for long periods they just weren't going to score anyway. Like it's almost like the Roosters were in a frantic way, sort of trusting each other to.
But when you seem to get within that 20-metre line of the Roosters, they're just so good at sliding across that goal line and picking up inside and outside runners and being able to shut it down.
Yeah.
Obviously something that they do in training a lot of, but I thought Tyrell May was amazing in this game for the Roosters. 45 tackles without a miss, and I think he was up near the leading running metres as well from a forward. He was brilliant for the Roosters.
And we've seen, but he's produced phenomenal numbers in 40-minute stints this last 2-3 months.
Easily. Yeah, him and Sia Wong, who was a little quieter in this one, but again, did some really good work. I thought Cheese sort of changed the game in and around half-time, about 10 or 15 minutes before half-time, and again, about 10 or 15 minutes on the other side of half-time. Where
we got bowling ball Cheese back.
Really started to...
We got Melbourne Storm Cheese back, which is what we've...
As soon as he saw there was half a hole anywhere near or around the ruck, he just put his head down and barged through it. Which led to a try of his own, obviously, just before half-time. It was a pretty good effort, actually, to drag himself across the line and get the ball down. And then it was a big part of the try, the lead-up to the try for Lindsay Collins as well, when they scored next to the post. A bit of Teddy involvement to break the line, and then him off the back of that. And, I thought he was instrumental in most of their good attacking ball. I thought the halves were a little quiet.
And it is a bit of a restructure, but it's one that can work. I hope he comes in next year with the attitude to play like this and not try and be... Yeah,
well, you've seen in the last...
just be Harry Grant Jr.
5 or 6 weeks where this is what we expected from him from the start of the year, and it just didn't come in until 20 weeks into the season.
But even last week as well, his defence, but this week he's just back in the scrap and he's just up and... he's never going to be an 80-minute...
Yeah, we split the Sharks open a few times as well last week.
He's never going to be an 80-minute, classy-looking Cameron Smith style, but if he's a very good 60-minute Bulldog, then that's what he's got to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought they had the Storm in all sorts for that last, probably 20 of the last 30 minutes. Storm seemed to compose themselves for the last 10 minutes or so, but 5 minutes. But the Roosters just seemed to be picking them apart down the edges, but they were always... There was always somebody there to make that last tackle and stop them from scoring the tries. Came down to a 50-50 chance with, a minute and a bit to go. Harry Grant seemed to be making his mission to make it as hard as possible for Munster to kick a fucking field goal. I don't know what he was doing. There was 3 or 4 times he just went the complete opposite way. Yeah. And you're like, mate, they've set up over there. Why are you going left? And he was running himself and he was trying to pick up forwards on the outside of him. And just...
I think the second to last set they had, it was almost like I thought they've got a plan here that someone else is going to pop, like Meany or someone's going to have the shot.
Yeah.
It was that far away from Munster shouting for it, but Anyhow.
And it came down to a Munster crossfield kick and a brilliant individual effort from Warbrick, who's really stamped himself as a pretty special first grader now.
Mm-hmm.
He's physical on the ground, and that was a perfect leap to grab hold of that ball over young Jackson Paulo, I think it was, and they put it down to win him the game. But Walker came through again with another clutch field goal. He seems to be able to just slot them when they need them, but unfortunately this week it was the crossfield kick, and it was bye-bye Roosters.
It was end of the day, it was a 50-50 play, but that's what Munster does. It's, sometimes you're kissed on the arse in life, and at times he is. Unfortunately, we are not, David. But
yes.
Overall, I really enjoyed the game. I will go as far to say is in that last 10 minutes, I was cheering for the Roosters because I thought their effort had won them the game. I thought they deserved to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially given the cattle they were missing.
And the strength
all of
through
those
the middle of the
outside
field.
backs really stepped up. I know, was it Pargo had the bad moment that probably let Melbourne back in the game where he dropped the one where the Wong flicked the part ball out, which didn't need to happen early in a set. 2020's hindsight probably cost them the game, really. But because they still had momentum and were working back upfield then.
They were.
But ultimately, they got out of jail in a very enjoyable game.
I thought Corey Allen, Sam Walker, and Brandon Smith were really good ball in hand. Couple of issues defensively, but fantastic with the ball in hand. Radley was very good. So was Teddy when he stopped running around in circles. When he started supported back through the middle.
In the first half, he was just in the corner every time, and
it's almost
like he's almost the barometer there. That if he's getting caught in corners, the Roosters' attack isn't working. And it happened.
There needs to be a message to go to him. Instead of turning around and running back in the direction, just give the fucking ball to someone else to let them take the tackle and then set up the other side. You know what I mean? Because it ends up being a detriment, and he ends up running 5 or 10 metres backwards and then getting caught, and then you've got players in front of the ball, whereas you just dish it off to a centre or a winger and let them take the tackle and fucking
I've actually just thought this. He's actually probably the only fullback in the game, given his stature, that doesn't have a sweep play. He always he's more
back in the inside support.
He's closer to the ruck all the time, and he's the one getting
because he doesn't pass the ball early enough.
No, but like you never see him shoveling on or adding extra. I don't say you never. You
used to.
You used to see him, and you do see him chiming off a scrum and do it. So I know, don't write in to say I know he does, but it's not part of his go-to play.
He doesn't straighten up as much as a lot of the other fullbacks, whereas they'll see they're running out of room and they'll engage the defender and then pass the ball.
Draw the two in to
whereas he'll try to still get on the outside of someone. And if you're doing that with a sliding defence, they just push and then you get trapped in corners, which, obviously has been a defensive ploy for a lot of teams against the Roosters this year. Nat Butcher and Tyrell May were awesome. They were the two standouts for mine for the Roosters. They got through mountains and mountains of work in the middle of the field, and probably the reason that the Roosters were so dominant in the middle. Seve Katoa were good in attack, ball in hand. Again, a couple of defensive issues for those guys, but they were very good when they did have the ball. Munster and Grant were good at times, but did sort of get lost a little bit as well. But I thought Tyrone Wishart was my man of the match. I thought when the game was on the line and they needed points, he was the one who was sparking them up early in the game, and he directly led to those first two tries. So for mine, he was the man of the match.
Two blokes you didn't mention. One's only in fleeting, but beautiful 5-minute passage of play from Sandon Smith.
Yes.
To have a couple of really dangerous ruck dummy half runs, bust them open, and an amazing ball to open them up, just to open the floodgates up. And
I don't think I've seen him play a poor game.
No,
average games, but
there's not many
very
blokes
good ones.
Even in first grade that throw a quality ball like that that finds
100%.
Collins on the chest.
Have had raps on him since he's come in.
And we've seen he's got a very good kicking game. We've seen that across the way. So that just want to wrap him quickly. And Nick Meaney was very, very good. His aerial work was great. He was in the right spot all the time. I don't necessarily think it was the game of his life, as Vossi was raving on about. But he was very good, and I can't fault anything of what he's done. If Pappenhausen is in wherever he's going to be next year, they've got a pretty good custodian there at the moment.
I reckon you give him an off-season of working on some ball playing. Like, I know he did start as a bit of a half/fullback when he was back at the start.
Yeah.
But I think if you can really work on some of that short passing inside and out with some support players, it could be, could increase his game even more. Like, he's been at a different level than what he was at the Bulldogs coming into the Storm this year, but I think he can even improve again, to be honest. So.
Yeah. Go through your 3-2-1 quickly.
I had Tyrone Wishart as my man of the match. I gave Tyrell May the 2 points from the Roosters side, and I gave Munster the 1, basically, just the clutch play at the end of the game. I think he made 9 line breaks, and he did do a lot of ball running in the middle of the field, and he got smacked a couple of times, but it didn't stop him from continuing to try and produce something at the line. So,
yeah, I'm good with that. All right, camera's back online, and we're going to head over the ditch to Go Media Stadium, where I need a new analogy, but yeah, the tank was empty for the Knights. They went to the cauldron and got completely cooked over there. We're in the game and actually came back, and for a brief period I thought, game on here, but...
Still never really thought the Warriors were in trouble,
realistically, heading over there in that atmosphere, awesome to see, awesome for rugby league, but ultimately, what did the stats say?
We had 7 tries to 2, 6 out of 7 conversions played 1 out of 2. A missed field goal by the Warriors, 82% completion played 78%. 630 plus running metres and 240 plus post-contact metres for the Warriors. 7 line breaks to 2, 47 tackle busts for the Warriors, 26 for Newcastle. 4 offloads to 6, 3 forced dropouts to 0. 335 tackles played, 409. 10 errors to the Warriors, 9 to the Knights. 2 penalties conceded to 3, 4 ruck infringements against Newcastle, 2 inside the 10 against the Warriors. The bandwagon slowed down pretty quickly for the poor old Knights and got run off the road at the end of the day. Spluttered and stopped and ran out of fuel by the last half an hour of this game. They got belted in the middle of the field. It was my concern from before the game was before a ball was kicked that their forward pack, while at times have been competitive this year, it was a big part of the reason that they started so slow this year. They were getting dominated early in the year, and they came up against one of the better packs in this game, and they got bashed off the middle of the field, which forced them out to the edges pretty quickly. And the Warriors just seemed set up, knew what was coming, made sure that the middle held strong, and were able to defend well enough out wide to keep the Knights off their back, realistically. Their forward, the enthusiastic up-tempo forward pack and then some skill from Sean Johnson and the outside backs really kicked into gear towards the back end of this game, and Newcastle really could not do much about it. Looked like a bit of a foregone conclusion about 20 minutes in, and you run 3 tries in the first 25 minutes or whatever it is of a match. And they were pretty convincing tries as well. It was it's not like they managed to pull something out of their arse and just scrape a try. There was Chance just floating around the back and running straight through a hole. Fanua Blake just stepping past 2 and 3 blokes as he trundled his way in behind the post. And the Knights looked pretty downtrodden after that 20-odd minutes into the first half. As you mentioned, they did fight hard for probably, 15 minutes either side of half-time there. Clune stuck his nose through and got a little offload away from which people seem to think was quite dubious, but there is one view that I saw which looked like the arm did get at least travel backwards. So whatever. It was a try to Dylan Lucas there, and another nice one for Mazu sweeping around the outside, but they really got wiped off the park by this forward pack. I thought it was a tremendous performance from the Warriors middle forwards.
Well, led by the tribal chief. Good was Tohu Harris.
Brilliant.
Incredible. It's amazing.
And he was limping a couple of times again.
He's got a busted back. He's got his back's like yours.
I think his knee's fucked.
And he's probably got no cartilage in his knee. I haven't seen performance like this with a busted body since Hiroshi Tanahashi, but he even getting in behind the line, making big 20-metre busts, opening up. His connective play was as good as always, and he threw 50 tackles on top of it. Absolutely probably the performance of the weekend, actually.
Fanua Blake and Barnett were brutal in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
You throw in Ford, who I thought had quite a good game down the edge there on the left for the Warriors. And Johnson's just picked them apart as well.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to play fast anymore. As we've mentioned a couple of times during the year, he just sort of sits back and waits and watches. Just sees what's folding out in front of him and then makes the right decision. Dylan Walker injected massive energy.
He doesn't need to play fast because when Walker comes on, he just takes over the running half stuff, and he
was like the Tasmanian devil
to
in
what
the
he
middle
was
of the
Manly,
field.
but like his physicality now is him and Tavanga coming on and just belting tired blokes. And we've talked about this earlier in the year, but it was amazing as well.
It was dead set like the Tasmanian devil in the cartoons, just spinning his way through the middle of the field, knocking blokes left, right, and centre.
Literally into the upright.
That try where he charged back through on the inside, that was tremendous. But and then he took control as well when Johnson did go off for the last sort of 10 minutes and he had a little 10-minute rest at the back end of the game. He was the man who took over the kicking and he was the one who was taking over all the positional play for the Warriors. I thought he had a tremendous game in 38 minutes or something. He was out there. Made a big difference for him. Mentioned the Knights came back either side at half-time, but there was never really any danger to the Warriors. Both teams really targeted the halves again. Another game where the attack was really directed at the inside and outside shoulders of the halves, which came to really good fruition in making the defence jam in. It was drawing in second rowers, it was drawing in centres, and there was a couple of times where the winger, like Dallin, just strolled over untouched. Marzu did the same around on the left. The first try of the match was Chance, where you had two and three blokes jamming on Sean Johnson, and he just gets the ball out the back to Chance to just stroll through that hole in the centres there.
He'd probably his best game since the start of the year.
He was brilliant. Almost 300 metres, I think it was.
It was
fucking ridiculous. It was just every time there was something on, he was the man that was trying to get involved. And did a couple of real nice passes as well to set up his outside men. I think he was the one who put Dallin away. He was the one who scored the try, obviously, to start the match. He did it again on the left-hand side, I think, for Montoya to score.
Yep.
He was brilliant in this game. He actually got my man of the match, to be honest. I thought he changed the game.
Okay.
With the way that he was involving himself in the attack, especially on those sweep plays out to the edges. But they did a really good job of not dropping off with the second rowers to compact that defence, which made his job a lot easier on the outside there as well, with the likes of Ford, Harris and Barnett just drawing defenders off Sean Johnson's shoulder. So, I don't think they could have played much of a better game, to be honest. The Warriors, I don't think they would have challenged any team in the competition the way they played on the weekend. So
I agree. That was
the thing is they've got to produce it again.
I don't want to say they had the bye against Penrith, but it was almost a barrier trial. They rested Johnson early in the week, knew it was coming, and
they seemed to clock off after about half an hour.
This was their time to go moment. Amazing scenes afterwards. You can find us on social media. The whole stadium singing the team song, which was awesome. I don't have much more to add. It was just a very an outstanding physical performance, and they're the third best team in the comp, and they produced that here.
But they really targeted in behind the ruck as well, as you mentioned there with Torhu broke the line 2 or 3 times in behind there. Egan was in there as well. Chance went sniffing around there a couple of times. And that was a big part of they'd go 1-2 with the forwards, and as soon as they bent the line, they'd make sure that the next tackle where they targeted in behind the markers and really were making 10, 15, 20 metres at times in behind, and then that just led to being able to compress the defence and spread it out to the edges.
Has any forward back in the comp at their best? Can any forward back in the comp at their best match the whole running of these 5 starting forwards?
I think Brisbane, probably.
Yeah.
For mine, I think Brisbane, just those two, mainly those two blokes. But you throw in Ricky and Flegler and the likes, they're probably the team that could dominate, or not dominate, but match and probably slightly shade the Warriors forward pack. So.
But how often this year have we seen Fanua Blake score either untouched or with a hand strung out? Jackson Ford, same thing, or he hits that half hole and just goes straight through. Niokore is very good at the same thing.
Toru
If not
Harris
slightly
with
physical.
short passing
Tohu opens
to
up with a
someone
short one
else,
or
yeah.
cuts back under Johnson. And Barnett does just as well. I'm saying as a cumulative 5, there's not too many better hole hitting forward packs.
They're the three best teams in the comp.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
they have the 3 strongest forward packs by a long way. I don't think anyone gets close to those top 3.
I will say this: Liam Martin's dragged Penrith back into contention. He's been phenomenal this last couple of months since he came back after the Origin injury or the little break, whatever he had
Sorensen back. You got Yo,
but because they were getting
Leota.
known for a lot of this season, but now they're in the conversation. So, man, this Brisbane game's a cracker. Great scenes. Look, I did say I dropped off, but I had been saying for 2 months that Warriors will make the grand final. They feel like the grand final team to be part of someone else's story, but we're getting...
I would have liked to see them on the other side, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come up against Penrith or Melbourne this week and have Brisbane and Penrith play, or Brisbane and Melbourne play.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think the only team that probably, as I said, can shade them in the forwards is the team that they're coming up against this week.
They would annihilate Melbourne. Yeah. I was going Tohu 3, Chance 2, but you're going the other way.
Yeah, I had Chance and then Tohu 2, and then I had a pick of 4. I'll mention a few players before we get to that. I thought Marzu was the best of their back 5 easily. Made another 200 metres or whatever. Clune and Gamble were decent, but didn't get a whole heap of great opportunity because the forwards were pretty well dominated. Jacob Saifidi was probably the best, or one of the better forwards. Elliott was very good. And Frizzell was fucking enormous.
Yeah.
The bloke was injured about 7 times during this game. I think every time he took a hit up, he grabbed a different part of his body, whether it was his ribs or his shoulder or his neck or his knee or something. But he just continued so hard in this game. And Dylan Lucas is now, he's going to be one of the first Supercoach kids picked up next year. If he gets a starting spot or even a bench spot, he has to be in your Supercoach team because he works his absolute ring out. And starting in this game, he was probably their best forward.
Man, didn't they get owned?
With the try.
Wow, just the media reach I'm just looking now.
Yeah, no, it was pretty bad.
They didn't have Saifidi's only forward that cracked 100 metres.
Pompey and Montoya were good, ball in hand. Sean Johnson, Fanua Blake. You can go through a whole heap of them. Sirenen was very good. We mentioned Walker and Harris. Ford was one we probably didn't mention too much, but he was terrific again on the edge. And, Chance, I thought, was the man of the match. Had Chance, Harris, and then I either had Ford, Walker, or Lucas, or Frizzell.
I'll give it to Walker.
Yeah.
I thought he was great. Bailey Sinner's an interesting one because I believe he's free to go somewhere else.
Apparently.
And we've said it before, but there's clubs that could use someone like him.
Absolutely.
Which we'll talk about in our next show. But anyway... That is a look back on the prelim finals.